As you well know, Wrath launch is on the 26th of September. There will be an overwhelming amount of changes, of course, some of which is coming with the pre-patch, most probably 23rd of August, but most of the new stuff can be found on the new continent, Northrend. New zones, new factions, a brand new class, the Death Knight, updated professions, even a new one, Inscription, and many more things to be excited about. Even thinking about the sheer volume of the new stuff is exhausting, there's so many. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned achievements. Naturally, not everyone is going to be interested in every single aspect of the game. After all, you can be a PvP player, a PvE player, both. You can be obsessed with achievements, leveling and gearing alts, make tons of money, and I could go on and on and on. Most people, like me and probably you too, will have to choose between these, at least at the beginning. Later, when we're a couple of weeks into the expansion, you can of course start focusing more and more on different aspects, but first, if you're mainly a raider, you have to get a couple of things done, and I would like to help you with a list, because organizing your thoughts can help you a tremendous amount, especially if your time is limited. So, let's make a to-do list or checklist or Wrath Raider starter pack or whatever we call it. You will be able to work on multiple items of the list at once, yet some are of higher priority. I'll rank them in importance for you, so that your character's power progression is as dynamic as possible. So one of the first things you want to work on is your main faction repetitions. The four main factions are the Burmester Accord, the Kirin Tor, the Argent Crusade and the Knights of the Ebon Blade. I call these the main ones because they're unique compared to the others in that 1. They sell the only head enchants available in the entire expansion, similarly to how it was in TBC. And 2. They have a faction specific tabard. The tabard helps you with leveling the rep while doing high level or heroic dungeons. By the way, I made a video of everything you need to know about repetitions in Wrath, so if you need some more info on that, you'll find it in the description. Anyway, there are basically two things you want from these factions ASAP, your head enchant and items into your pre-raid gear. For head enchants, healers want Previewed with the Vermest Accord, tanks go with Argent Crusade, casters with the Kirin Tor and physical DPS with the Knights of the Ebon Blade. But really, my other video is quite comprehensive, check that out. So this is two things on your checklist right away. 2. Because you may be able to use some items that come from the faction which gives your head enchant, but in a lot of cases you want to swap tabards after you have your hands on your enchant. The next one is a shopping list. Yes, really. A list in a list. Kind of a listception. There are some things you just need to spend money on, some that are important but not must-have, and some that are there for your own comfort, you can skip them if you want. So we'll use these three subsets as categories. Into the first one come the cold weather flying. This is nothing special, just a new riding skill that allows you to fly in Northrend. Also, you just can't get around, and by the way don't want to, without a dual talent. And this is true for every single class. You might argue that you could with certain DPS classes, but really you can't. It's like saying as a child that you'll always have time for X and Y thing, but really as an adult you have certain times when you just can't make it. It is a must-have. Third, as a tailor myself, I am pleased to let you know you want a bunch of 20 slot bags, as now they are cheap as dirt. I'm not really kidding, it makes your gameplay so much more enjoyable when you don't run out of backspace after having done 4 quests since the last cleanup. It's not a large pile of gold you have to spend for this, but still it's worth mentioning. Item number 4 here is your Bisglyphs. I hesitated a bit if I should put it here or put it in the next spot, but I decided they belong here because of the same reasons I put here dual aspect. The second category is the important stuff you can afford not to spend money on and broadcast to the world what a cheap fuck you are. Nah, just kidding. These are things that are really nice to have, especially on your first raid night, but if you can't afford any or all of these, well, tough luck, we work around what we have after all. So things like this are the Kirin Tor rings, you can see them here. They have very nice stats on them, plus a nice perk in the shape of an extra heartstone into Dalaran. You have to decide yourself if it's worth this much gold. At Exalted they're only 6.8k after all. I definitely have one on my mage and one on my paladin. Another item like this is the Darkmoon Trinket, specifically the Darkmoon Cut Greatness. It is best for most classes and I expect it to cost tens of thousands of gold on the first few weeks, maybe even later too. Now, this is one I am hesitant to say I would spend money on as a mage, but if I had a physical DPS, I would definitely get my hands on one. The third one of this category is the crafted items. Just as it used to be in TBC, you just can't pump out so much crafted material for your crafted gear that you could make any piece for yourself for as long as the first couple of raids, and those are the ones where it really matters. So option B is to buy them, of course. And as you probably expect, it won't be cheap for a long time. Once again, you can survive without these items, but your raid performance and your overall reputation in your guild would suffer so much. If you can afford it, you should definitely craft the good pieces of your pre-raid beast list. And maybe I should add here that you can easily spend a couple of hundred gold on items you can buy from the 4 main factions quartermasters. As I've already mentioned, some of these can be useful as part of your pre-raid gear. Just keep in mind where your gear might come from, that is, crafting, heroic dungeons, faction quartermasters if you have the rep, and badges. And finally, the third category is the items that are nice to have, but they don't really contribute to your performance. These are your minor glyphs and the multi-person mounts. There's even a mount that has 2 vendors on it. These stuff are fun to have, of course, but if raiding is what you only care about, you can easily skip on these. The next item on your list is actually a list again, and it will be your pre-raid gear list. I recommend that you put together a gear composition or follow one already available on the web. One thing you have to keep in mind is that it is not crucial to get the absolute best for every single slot by any means. You see, phase 1 content isn't that hard, as I'm sure you've heard a couple of times. Even with the buffs Blizzard promised us, the encounters will get quite easy a couple of weeks into the expansion. This doesn't mean, however, that you shouldn't prepare to the absolute best of your abilities for the first couple of weeks. Believe me, for most guilds, week 1 patchwork or SAR 3D won't be a walk in the park by any means, so it is important that you acquire at least a reasonable piece in every single slot. And how you can do it? The trick is time management. If you have time for one heroic, for example, you should choose one that drops an item that is difficult to substitute. For example, as a mage, all of my pre-raid piece options for my shoulder slot come from heroics. This means that I have to get at least one of those by the first raid night, so that one more heroic of the day should be one of the dungeons that can drop me shoulder armor. This process gets a lot simpler if you are willing to spend money on crafted gear. For example, chest pieces from tailoring are very strong, so I'm not gonna bother with heroics that only drop chest pieces for me, or at least they're not of any priority. The same rule can be applied to the items you can purchase from quartermasters. Now, of course, if you think about it, this doesn't mean at all that you're free from the burden of massive heroics farming. No. You need rep for these, and how you get the rep? Through heroics farming, of course. So you should start with identifying slots you can fill easily and those that can be problematic, and choose your path accordingly. Next one is daily quests, and not just any daily quests, but the Sons of Odir ones. In Wrath, there is a single faction that sells shoulder enchants. You can buy a minor one at Honored, but you should definitely go for the major one at Revered ASAP. Leveling the reputation for this faction is done through doing dailies and handing in rep items. These aren't BOP, so if you're really a rich one, you could buy these on the auction house, but if private servers are anything to go by, these will go easily for over 4-5 gold each, and just from Honored to Exalted you need 1320 of these, or 1200 if you're a human. I let you do the math, it's a nice pile of gold you could otherwise spend on gear, so I'd say you pry the quests and buy crafted stuff instead if you have any money. And the list goes on. Your two professions are also sources of character power, so of course you must spend some time and effort leveling them at least to the point where you get the thing that you benefit from in a raiding environment. I'm not going into detail about which professions you want as what class, but in any case you definitely want to get your hands on the bonuses, and as I've stated before, crafted gear can be really good and quick to obtain, so you might want to level the profession to the point where you can craft your own stuff. Now, the next one is really important, although only if you happen to be an alchemist, geocrafter or inscriptionist. As you may know, these three professions have a bunch of recipes they don't get from a trainer. Most of us is probably going to be geocrafter anyway, so I'm going to start with that one. In Dalaran there's an NPC called Timothy Jones. He gives you some quests. After you finish them, you'll get a daily quest that rewards you a JC specific currency called Dalaran Geocrafting Token. Now, you need these to buy some of the recipes, including the most useful gems like Delicate Scarlet Ruby and the others. Obviously, a lot of people will want the same stats as now, but you might want to talk to your guildmates about who gets what in what particular order. You don't want to be stuck with 15 JCs and without anyone being able to craft a single meta gem or something awkward like that. Anyway, you want to do these dailies literally every day, even after you've learned all the recipes, because when epic gems come out, assuming they won't be in the game when the expansion launches, which I'm 100% sure will be the case, you will have to go through the same process all over again, except according to my investigation, the blue gems cost 1 token and the epic gems cost 4. So by the time the epic gems come into play, presumably phase 4, you want to have a huge bank of these tokens. As you probably won't spend a lot of nights raiding yet, I'd say you should work on this in phase 1. Alchemy and inscription is somewhat in a similar position, except they're very different. You get it, right? Yeah, nah, I'm sure you've seen like 10 guides about both being insanely good moneymakers, so you've banked up on at least one character with these. But hey, after all, this is a to-do list, so it's my job to remind you, do your daily researches. Now, of course, if you happen to not have heard anything about this, I'll tell ya, as an alchemist, you will get a new skill, or I'm not sure what to call it, spell. Anyways, it's called Northern Alchemy Research. You can do this on a 3-day cooldown. It says, experiment with northern herbs to discover a new alchemy recipe. Can only be done every 3 days. As you can see, you need a bunch of herbs for this. By the way, these will be the lower cost herbs, and as you see, you discover a new recipe. You also get some potions or elixirs, here's a list of them. And you can learn altogether 13 recipes with this skill. That means it takes 3 times 13, 39 days to discover everything, assuming you do this on cooldown. And I'm saying you should because these 13 recipes include potions of wild magic and potions of speed. Both of these will be in huge demand from the start and will continue to be profitable throughout the whole of Wrath. Inscription, similarly to alchemy, has the minor inscription research, which is available right away at skill 75, and the big one you really care about, Northern Inscription Research at skill 400. Both have a 20-hour cooldown, but let's focus on the important one, that Northern Inscription Research. This costs some ink, not too expensive, and says, compiles your experiences from the day, creating a random assortment of inscribed works. You are very likely to discover new major glyph recipes this way. Also, you get some scrolls, but the main thing you care about is the discovery, of course. As you can see, there's a hilarious amount of glyphs you can learn this way, and therein lies the big money-making potential. Guys, if you happen to be one of the few who discovers any important glyph on day 1, 2, you're gonna make a shit ton of gold. I gotta tell you, I banked up 40k gold so far, and I'm not shy to spend a couple of hundred on a glyph if I have to, on a single glyph, and that's just one person. Even a couple of weeks into the expansion, especially on mid-low pop realms, some of the glyphs will be sought after like mad, so you definitely want to do these every single day. The next point only applies if you have cooking, which by the way you should. Well, there's a cooking daily which gives you a reward token, just like with JC. With this token, you can buy an ingredient that is needed for feasts among other high-level buff foods. Believe me, you will be much loved if you prepare with some of these for raid nights. While making this list, it came to my mind you can actually reach level 80 without even getting in touch with one or even two of the main factions, so I should add reaching friendly with all four of them, meaning you have to find and do a questline for each. I say at least friendly because after that you can buy that tabard and continue in dungeons. It seems Blizzard is adding some extra quest rewards to the end of chain quests and group quests. These extra rewards mean emblems and a box that contains potions and other stuff. As of now, I'm not sure which ones got upgraded specifically, but in any case, together with the already existing gold rewards, these will inflate the economy even more, plus with the emblem rewards added, although it's just one per quest, you will need to run less heroics. I don't necessarily think this change is going to be for the good, so please do not do these quests. Personally, I'm going to do them, so if you accept my advice, I'll have a bit more gold than you guys and my gold is going to worth more. Well guys, that's the list I prepared for you. Maybe I didn't forget anything important and I hope you found it useful. If you have any thoughts about this, please just write a comment down below and I hope to see you when the drums of war thunder once again.